Welcome to the Wellness Guru with Dr. Ag. I'm Dr. Agneshwar of Sante Comprehensive Women's Healthcare. Wellness is a topic that concerns many people, from sleeping to nutrition to disease, fitness, and stress management. There are so many factors that keep the body, the mind, and the spirit in harmony and balance. So sit back and join me for the next half hour as I give you tips, advice, and information that can help you in your daily life. Today we're going to start talking about nutrition. Nutrition is a vast subject that can encompass so many different things. And we're not going to be able to cover everything in one episode. So we're going to break it up throughout the year and have different episodes on different aspects. Today we're going to talk about the basics. We're going to try to find out what we're supposed to eat in a day. What's our portion size? Is it a large bowl? Is it a small bowl? What should we be eating and what should we be looking for? How do you read a nutrition label? And to help us with this, I've invited a special guest, Alexa Schmidt, who's a dietitian that's going to help us talk about this stuff, look over some labels, show us some portion sizes of what we should be eating, and hopefully educate us all in terms of how we're going to stay healthy and how we're going to eat well. Today we're joined by Alexa Schmidt, who is a registered dietitian that's going to talk to us a little bit about what we should be eating in our daily lives. Well, welcome, Alexa, to the show.
Thank you.
Now, let's start with the basics. How many calories do we need in a day?
It really depends on the person, but in general, 2,000 calories is a nice ballpark figure. You know, we have to look at age, sex, weight, height, physical activity level to be able to determine how many calories you actually need.
Okay, so basically a hot fudge sundae and then we're done for the day, right?
That'd be about it.
Right. Yeah. So 2,000 calories. Now, most of us would eat 2 to 3 meals a day. How would you divide that up?
If we look at a day and breakfast, lunch, dinner with snacks in between, and let's say 2,000 calories, so we'd have maybe 500 calories for breakfast, 500 for lunch, 500 for dinner, and then we have 100 or 200 calorie snacks in between, so that we would equal 2,000 in a day. But oftentimes people skip breakfast,
right.
So we've got 0, and then lunch, might be 200, 300 calories because we're in a hurry, we don't have a lot of time. Dinner, 600, 700, 800 calories, and then at night we're still starving, and we don't know why, because we haven't fueled our body consistently throughout the day. So when we look at 2,000 calories, we want to really try to break it down consistently between breakfast, lunch, and dinner.
Now, we hear all the time about how important breakfast is, not only for our children before they go to school so they can concentrate better and not fall asleep at their desk, but also for adults, those of us who go to work every day, or even those of us who stay at home and take care of our kids and parents or what have you. Tell us a little bit about the importance of breakfast, or a healthy breakfast.
A healthy breakfast, a balanced breakfast, very, very important on a lot of different levels. Concentration, as you mentioned, energy level, keeping us satisfied throughout the morning and early afternoon, really, really key. But it's not as easy as saying, let's just have a bowl of cereal for breakfast. Mostly carbohydrates, digest pretty quickly, so it's better if we add a little bit of protein, some healthy fat in there, so that we can reap all those benefits of concentration, energy level, sustained energy. So if we were looking at something maybe like yogurt with walnuts, some fresh fruit, or if we did oatmeal and maybe a banana with some peanut butter and a glass of skim milk, so that we've got the nice balance of carbohydrates, proteins, and fats.
Okay. So those of you who stop by the Dunkin' Donuts on the way to work and pick up a nice donut and a cup of coffee, probably not a good idea. So basically, breakfast, if we say protein, That means eggs.
Protein found in a lot of different things. You know, we could choose eggs, we could choose a slice of cheese, a glass of skim milk. It could be a lean meat source like ham. And oftentimes we look at the typical breakfast items, but it doesn't have to be a typical breakfast item. It could be, you know, a turkey sandwich and a piece of fruit.
Right.
So whatever's going to work for you, that's quick and easy, because time is always an issue in the morning. But lots of different protein sources, and it's not just those meats. We could even look at beans, peanut butter, nuts, seeds as a good protein source.
But even cereal. There's cereal, and then there's peanut butter Captain Crunch, right?
That's right, that's right. So choosing your more wholesome cereal choices, more whole grain things, oatmeal is a great option. Even some of the Kashi cereals have a higher protein content. They're going to keep you satisfied for a longer period of time. But when you read an ingredient label looking for the first word to be whole grain, whole oats, whole rye, is going to be a better choice than those Captain Crunch type things where you're finding enriched wheat flour as a first ingredient.
And there's also a difference between multigrain and whole grain, right?
That's correct.
I think people have a misconception that as long as the word grain is used, must be healthy for you.
Absolutely, and that is a big thing that you want to look at when you're reading food labels. The first word must say whole. So whole oats, whole rye. If it's enriched wheat flour, not a whole grain. On the front of a label, it may say made with whole grains or multigrain or whole grain, but you really need to read that ingredient label.
And we're going to get into we're going to look at a label and kind of dissect for our audience how to read one, because now they have to be on every food item that's sold.
Correct.
But let's get into a little bit of, say, breaking up the calories. Now, say we take 500 calories for breakfast. Now, is that 2 eggs and a piece of bacon, or should we be looking more calories from protein, juices, things like that?
Okay.
I mean, give us an idea. Most of us, I think, have about 15 to 20 minutes in the morning to eat something. Some people even less. So now that we have, if you walk down the cereal aisle, there's cereal bars, there's Nutri-Grain bars, and Special K bars, and so many different things. And are these healthy? Are they just sugars?
I like to recommend more wholesome foods that are quick and easy to prepare. Even preparing the night before can be really beneficial. You know, you talk about those bars, and mostly they're sugar. So high carbohydrate, low protein, not very satisfying, not really going to give you the benefits of sustained energy and concentration. So a quick and easy breakfast might be something like a Greek yogurt or a regular plain yogurt with a half a cup of fruit and maybe a half a cup of oatmeal, a tablespoon of peanut butter. So those are all things that are pretty quick and easy to prepare. The only thing you really need to make is the oatmeal. Pop it in the microwave, a minute and a half, 2 minutes, it's done. So very quick and easy, and that could equate to about 500 calories with a decent amount of protein and some healthy fat as well.
Okay, now as we move through the day, we get to lunch. And everybody's lunch schedule is a little bit different. Some people have a half an hour for lunch. Some people have an hour. Some people eat lunch at 11 o'clock in the morning. And some people eat at 2 o'clock in the afternoon. Should lunch be a relatively small meal? Should it be a large meal? Should it be carbohydrates, proteins?
You really want it to be balanced with all of your meals. So lunch should be a decent sized meal. We want to ideally consume the majority of our calories before 3 or 4 o'clock in the afternoon. That way our metabolism works at its best. So we have a decent sized breakfast, a decent sized lunch, decent sized dinner, maybe even on the smaller side. But when we're looking at lunch, want it to be balanced with carbohydrates, proteins, and fats again. So let's say something that would be quick and easy might be a turkey sandwich on whole wheat bread with some carrot sticks and maybe an apple and maybe even a cup of skim milk with that, or a yogurt. So
sounds good.
Choosing 3 or 4 different food groups at all meals is a quick and easy way to get your carbohydrates, proteins, and fats without having to think, gosh, how many grams of this do I need? How many grams of that do I need? But think 3 or 4 different food groups, and it's going to balance you throughout the day. And you make another really good point when you say, you know, some people eat at 11, some people eat at, 2 o'clock. It depends on your schedule. But the other thing to keep in mind is that you want to eat consistently every 3 to 4 hours. 5 hours max in between meals.
And that's that hunger cycle, right? If you wait too long, you just feel so hungry.
Exactly.
You want to eat the whole house.
Exactly.
And then you start looking like the whole house.
So when you talk about your hunger scale, 0 is I'm so hungry I can't go another step unless I eat. 10 is I'm so full, oh my goodness, how did I eat so much? 5 is I'm satisfied. Really want to stay between a 4 and a 7, and that can guide our eating habits. So.
And one of the things that people don't think about is water consumption. You know, drinking water does make you feel full.
Absolutely.
Not only is it good for you.
And it's something that I think tends to get overlooked a lot. You know, and a lot of people say we need 8 glasses of water a day. Well, it really depends on the individual, but making sure that you're adequately hydrated is really important. Once you start to feel thirsty, you're already 1 to 2% dehydrated. So in order for our bodies to function properly, really, really a key nutrient. And water is better than almost any of our other beverage choices out there. Fruit juice, oftentimes people think that is a great option. If it's 100% fruit juice, it's okay. You know, you certainly want to watch the portion size of that, but it does have a lot of sugar in it, even though it's natural sugar. So water and skim milk are probably your best beverage choices. If you're a big soda drinker, you know, a 20-ounce bottle of soda has about 17 to 18 sugar packets in it. So it's a lot of sugar without a lot of nutritional value. So maybe you could have a seltzer with a splash of 100% juice to decrease the amount of sugar that you're consuming. But hydration is really, really key.
All right. Now here's the other kicker. Now, a lot of times we have lunch, say at noon, and you work a long day, and by the time 6 o'clock comes around, you're really hungry.
Absolutely.
And you go home and eat a large dinner, and then plop yourself in front of the couch, right? Pretty much. What do you do during the afternoon, not only to keep yourself full and satisfied, but also to prevent you from going home and kind of blowing the whole wad on a large carbohydrate load for dinner?
That is the great question. Planning ahead and preparing so that you have snacks available on hand at all time is really, really key. I mentioned the time frame, you know, every 3 to 4 hours we should be eating, and incorporating snacks in there. For a meal, I said 3 to 4 different food groups. For a snack, 2 different food groups, so that you're getting a combination of protein and carbohydrates. So maybe cheese and crackers, or a yogurt with a piece of fruit. You know, maybe it's a slice of bread with some all-natural peanut butter, so that it's a little bit, you know, 100, 200 calories, but you're not getting home and you're so ravenous that you could eat everything in sight. So a balanced
A snack in the afternoon is not a large Snickers bar.
That's correct. That's correct. Every so often, those things, everything can fit in moderation. No good foods, no bad foods, but a Snickers bar isn't probably, it tastes good and it's
Once
a
a
quick
week,
thing.
maybe.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Yeah, the other thing is, before I get into splitting the diet up into carbs and proteins, a lot of people, if they have a large carbohydrate lunch, tend to fall asleep in the afternoon and not be very productive, and so you want to kind of limit that, right?
Absolutely. It depends on the individual and how many carbohydrates they can tolerate at a particular meal. But, you know, if we're talking a 2,000 calorie diet, maybe it's 60, 70 grams of carbohydrates at a meal. But oftentimes I think we might sit down and have a big pasta meal for lunch. It's going to make you really tired. So if you had a little bit of pasta and maybe added some grilled chicken and some vegetables to it, you're going to decrease the carbohydrate consumption, increase the protein intake, and you're going to feel more satisfied and not have that, you know, real lethargic feeling after a meal.
Now, when we talk about 2,000 calories a day, we look at things like food pyramids and divided doses of carbohydrates, proteins, and fats. I don't think anybody out here is going to sit with a calculator and try to figure out what percentage of their meal is carbohydrate and fat, but roughly, how do you divide that up in a day?
The way that you divide it in a day, and not to get too specific, but 45 to 65% of your calorie intake should come from carbohydrates. 10 to 35% of your total calories should come from protein, and 20 to 35% should come from fat. So when you look at those numbers, like you said, people are thinking, oh my goodness, how does that break down? And to make it real easy, if you look at your plate and cut it in half, half of it should be covered with fruits and vegetables, a quarter should be protein, and a quarter should be a grain source. And that's going to automatically balance your carbohydrate, protein, and your fat intake. So again, kind of looking at your plate and splitting it up so that you get that correct balance.
That's a really good suggestion. Never thought about that. Now I gotta go and buy some plates I can cut up into pieces. But when you look at, say, carbohydrates, for example, there are what we call simple carbohydrates and complex carbohydrates, right? Give us an example of what's what.
Okay, when you're talking about simple and complex carbohydrates, you really want to choose the ones that have more complex carbohydrates, higher dietary fiber, again, going to help maintain blood sugar levels, help with concentration, as opposed to something that's going to, spike your blood sugar and then make it drop real quickly. So a, whole grain slice of bread as opposed to a white slice of bread would be a better option when you're looking at carbohydrates. Whole grain pasta as opposed to the white pasta. Not that the white foods are bad, but they don't have as much nutritional value, don't have as much dietary fiber. When you're talking about fruit juices, you would classify those as a simple sugar, as candy would fall into that category
Simple
as
sugar
well.
basically is what would come in a packet.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. So choosing the more natural form of things and more unprocessed would be a much better option.
Right. And protein, there's a lot of people that don't eat meat or don't eat red meat. Proteins can come from a number of sources besides meat. Is that correct?
Correct. Gosh, when you talk about, you certainly have your lean meats and your fish, but we have eggs and beans and lentils and tofu and tempeh, peanut butter, nuts, seeds, so a lot of different protein sources if you're not eating meat. Even if you're not a vegetarian, sometimes it's good to incorporate some meatless meals throughout the week to decrease saturated fat content overall diet.
And how about fats? There's good fats, bad fats. We read so much about fat. A few years ago, there was a big push about trans fats. But basically, it comes to saturated and unsaturated fat.
Correct. And you need healthy fats in your diet to help absorb fat-soluble vitamins, to get your essential fatty acids. And when you're talking about what are those healthy fats, cooking with olive oil and canola oil, using peanut butter, nuts, and seeds, and really, and those are all the unsaturated fats. And you want to limit saturated fats that come from things like butter, sour cream, cream cheese, bacon. Those things can fit in moderation, but really trying to keep that to a minimum and focusing on those more healthy options.
Good. Now let's touch on one other subject. There's so much out there about vitamins and minerals and things like that, and especially as people age and in different phases of your life, your nutritional requirement and your mineral and vitamin requirement is going to change. As a basic rule of thumb, before everybody starts running out to the vitamin store and hoarding vitamins, what's a good suggestion for the general person out there, adult, in terms of vitamin and minerals?
It's always best to get all your vitamins and minerals from food. It's better absorbed by the body. But just a general recommendation would be a regular multivitamin. Something that doesn't go over 100% of the daily value for any of the particular vitamins or minerals. So it's not something, oftentimes on the market you'll see things that have 500% of this, 300% of that, and that's something that I wouldn't necessarily recommend, but just a regular multivitamin can be very beneficial. It doesn't make up for a poorly balanced diet, but it can just be an additional supplement to add in.
Okay. And how about different supplements? I have a lot of friends who buy vitamin C and vitamin E, and as well as I do, there's so many different marketplaces out there for these sort of things.
Absolutely.
How necessary are these, and isn't it true that your body will just get rid of what you don't absorb?
Absolutely. I wouldn't recommend going out and buying, this vitamin and that vitamin because you think you might need more of it. The water-soluble vitamins, what your body doesn't need, it's going to excrete, and the fat-soluble vitamins can build up and become toxic. So again, I would definitely just recommend a regular multivitamin and not getting into, choosing this and that, thinking that it's going to benefit you. I think I'd look more at maybe adding more fruits and vegetables into the diet, as well as the other food groups to ensure.
And just as a
adequate.
medical tip, fat-soluble vitamins, meaning A, D, E, and K, and everything else is water-soluble.
Correct. Right.
Great. So when we come back from our break, we're going to go over a nutrition label. And we're also going to show the audience what a portion size is. For instance, a bowl of pasta is not the biggest bowl you can find, and fill it up to the top and have a doggy bag to take home.
That's
right?
correct. That's
Okay,
right.
and
That's
we'll
right.
be right back. welcome back to the show. And Alexa here is going to go over a couple of things. First, we're going to talk about a nutrition label because everything has them.
Absolutely.
And what are they? What are we looking for? And what should we be paying attention to?
Okay, so if we pick up any item that we'll find in our grocery store, you always want to look at, serving size.
Okay.
So what is the serving size for this particular product? And noting that serving size on a package may be different than serving size that we talk about when we're talking about the food guide pyramid. So it's a little tricky. And you also want to check out how many servings are in the per container. So for example, with this bag of chips that we have, there's 3.5 servings in this bag. Oftentimes they'll say, oh, maybe 1 or 2 servings, but you always want to check how many servings per container. And really important to look at the calories. And you really want to kind of take into account all the information that's listed here. Total fat, saturated fat, as we talked about earlier, we want to try to keep to a minimum.
Right.
And how do we, look at a label and know without getting too specific? There's a 5-20 rule. So if we look at the percent daily value, if it's 5% or less, that's considered low. If it's 20% or more, that's considered high. So when we look at things like total fat, saturated fat, trans fat, cholesterol, sodium, those are all things we want to keep to a minimum. So try to keep below 5% or kind of keep that as a ballpark figure. When we're looking at things like dietary fiber, we want that to be on the higher end. So, over 20% would be something that we'd be looking for. So just a nice rule of thumb. You'll always see vitamin A, calcium, vitamin C, and iron listed here, looking at your vitamins and minerals. And, of course, we want those to be higher. So 20% or more would be considered
Not a lot
high.
in the potato chip bag.
Not a lot in the potato chip bag. But those are things that you want to kind of keep in mind. And as I mentioned before, I think serving size and servings per container are probably the most beneficial information that you're going to find on a nutrition facts panel. I don't want to forget to mention the ingredient listing. The less ingredients in a product, the better. So if you see on this package how long this ingredient listing is, not a very wholesome product. Again, everything can fit in moderation, but looking at your ingredient listing can be very, very beneficial to you.
Great. Another thing I find that's again, we talk about like gimmicks, marketing gimmicks and things. We talk about 0 trans fat or no cholesterol, but there's other saturated fats, some of the bad stuff that's in some of this stuff that really doesn't make it a real healthy product for you. One of the things that I wanted to go over was what I think everybody should know is serving size. What is a serving size of some foods that we eat just about every day? And I want to show our audience some of the things that we eat and what exactly should be a serving size.
All right, so again, using a 2,000 calorie diet as a reference, we want to look at all the different food groups, and what we have here is a little bit of pasta. So when you're talking about 2,000 calories, 6 servings of grains in a day is considered a serving. This is a half a cup of pasta, so 1 serving. And this can add up pretty quickly if you go out to a restaurant. They're not going to serve you a half a cup of pasta. It probably will be almost maybe the entire box of pasta.
I think you take more home than what a serving size is.
Absolutely, but this is a half a cup of pasta. When we're talking about cereal, 1 cup is considered a serving, and that is 1 cup of Cheerios, so that would be one serving. Just because something, we're talking about what is 1 serving, it doesn't mean that you can't have more than 1 serving at a particular meal, but how does it stack up in a day?
Right.
Okay, so if we have 2 servings at breakfast, 2 servings at lunch, 2 servings at dinner, that equals 6 for our 2,000 calorie diet.
Sure.
That would be enough for the day. When you're talking about serving size of meat, we usually use a deck of cards as a reference. Deck of cards is equal to 3 ounces. So again, if we only need 6 ounces a day on a 2,000 calorie diet, 3 ounces at lunch, 3 ounces at dinner, finished. You go out to a restaurant and they serve you 3 ounces of meat. Like we said, you're going to be wondering, where's the rest of your meal?
You get that, you're going to speak to the manager.
Absolutely. So a deck of cards, or you can use the palm of a woman's hand as a reference point for 3 ounces of meat. We talk about nuts being a healthy source of fat, but we want to keep in mind, although it's healthy fat, it's very high in calories. So portion size is really, really important. And we're talking about, we have some walnuts here.
Take a look at this.
This is a quarter cup of walnuts, equivalent to about 200 calories, 16 grams of fat. So if we were to have, a quarter cup, or maybe even only about 6 walnuts, 10 peanuts, 6 cashews, very small portion size. We're getting the health benefits of the healthy fat, but keeping our portion sizes to a minimum. Okay. Looking at fruits and vegetables, our portion sizes, pretty decent. 1 cup of carrots is considered a serving. So on a 2,000 calorie diet, we need about 2.5 cups of vegetables a day. 12 baby carrots is equivalent to a cup.
And that's raw
Raw.
vegetables, right?
Yep.
Okay.
If we're looking at, let's say, raw veggies, steamed broccoli, 1 cup is equivalent to 1 cup serving. If we're looking at spinach or lettuce that has more surface area, 2 cups would be equivalent to a 1 cup serving. Okay. So to make it easy for everybody, let's say 1 cup at lunch, maybe a half a cup for snack, 1 cup for dinner, we get our 2.5 cups that we need in a day.
Great.
Okay. Again, 2,000 calorie diet, we'd need 2 cups of fruit in a day. So maybe 1 cup at breakfast, 1 cup as a snack, and 32 grapes is equivalent to 1 cup. And so if we had 1 cup of grapes and an apple, maybe the size of your fist, that would be equivalent to 2 cups in a day.
Wow, great. I think we learned a lot today. I want to thank Alexa for joining us. I think it was very informative. And this is only one of a few episodes we're going to talk about nutrition. There's a lot of different topics out there, such as weight loss, such as how to shop and cook healthy. Eating healthy and buying healthy does not mean that you have to eat carrot sticks and celery all day long. There are choices available for all of us, but mainly it's about educating ourselves, learning what we eat and how much we eat, and trying to maintain a healthy lifestyle. Join us next week for another episode of The Wellness Guru. And thank you, Alexa, for coming today. And have a nice day, everybody.